Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Rolex Sky Dweller reference 326933. This watch is available from Chronex.com for €19,250. You can purchase the watch from Chronex.com online or alternatively in person at their boutiques. All their watches are Chronex certified original by their in-house watchmakers, and all their watches are covered by the Chronex 24-month warranty. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the Rolex Sky Dweller comes in this familiar outer watch box. As you can see, it has the Rolex coronet embossed, which is very aesthetically pleasing. One removes the lid, pulls down the flap, and I'll show you the inner watch box. Finished to a high standard, and I like the embossed gold coronet on the hinge lid. So inside there's a compartment, as you can see, which one pulls down, and that houses two items: the Oyster Perpetual Sky Dweller Owner's Instruction Manual. One also gets a leather wallet which contains the new style electronic warranty card, and as you can see it details the reference number of the Sky Dweller 326933. For security I've blacked out the serial number, but you can see the date of purchase was the 12th of March 2021. So this is a pre-owned piece, but it is in excellent as new condition. On the reverse of the leather wallet we have the guarantee manual worldwide service booklet. So I'll show you the other items. One also gets this Rolex SA Geneva superlative certified tag, and as you can see it has the Rolex hologram. So this certifies that the movement used in the Sky Dweller, which is the caliber 9001, is certified by Rolex and also by COSC as a superlative chronometer. This is the plastic bezel protector which protects the 18 karat gold fluted bezel. And one also gets the original Rolex price tag, as you can see. So this is a full set, box and papers, with all the accessories that come with the watch originally. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Rolex Sky Dweller reference 326933. 42mm case diameter. It has a 50.4mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13.9mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The roll saw oyster bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to the oyster clasp, and as you can see the oyster clasp is signed with an 18 karat gold coronet which is embossed. Very aesthetically pleasing oyster clasp. It's made from roll saw, so as you can see it is 18 karat gold, yellow gold in the centre section, and 904L oyster steel outer section which is brushed satin finish. Absolutely beautiful to look at. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks which complements the brushed satin finishing to the outer sections, and the mirror polished 18 karat gold centre section. The roll saw bracelet is finished to perfection. Flawless mirror polishing to the solid yellow gold 18 karat gold centre links, and the 904L brushed satin finish outer links. Just absolutely beautiful to look at. The lustre of the oyster steel which contrasts with the mirror polished 18 karat gold centre links. The fluted bezel is made from solid 18 karat yellow gold, as is the coin edge finished twin lock crown. Now, a notable feature of the Sky Dweller is that it has a rotating fluted bezel. It's currently in the neutral position, which is position 0. One can rotate it in 4 positions: position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3. So I'll demonstrate that. Rotating anti-clockwise, that's position 1, position 2, and lastly position 3. So unscrewing the crown in the first position is the manual wind position. So one can manually wind the caliber 9001 to top it up to its maximum 72-hour power reserve. Right, so in position 3 it is in the first position, and I'll show you what that does by rotating the crown in the first click position. It's the time setting position. And that also activates the 24-hour subdial in the centre of the dial. As you can see, it rotates both anti-clockwise and clockwise. So one can set the 24-hour subdial in the position 3 of the bezel. Rolex refer to this as the ring command system. So rotating the bezel to position 2 activates another complication, and as you can see one can independently rotate the hour hand both clockwise and anti-clockwise to set the time. and lastly one rotates it to position 1. Now if you look closely at the indices, which are applied 18 karat yellow gold, you'll see there is a red marker next to the 10 o'clock index on the dial. So the 12 indices on the dial denote the 12 months of the year. So for example, the 12 o'clock index on the dial is December, 1 o'clock is January, 2 o'clock is February, and so on. So if you look closely, you'll see there's a red marker at the 10 o'clock position, the 10 o'clock index on the dial. If I rotate the crown, you'll see that the quick set date complication activates, as you can see, and cycling through the 30 days of the month will also advance the red marker for the month. So we're currently at 10 o'clock, which is October, 11 o'clock will be November, 12 o'clock is December, as I've discussed. So if I cycle through, if you just look closely at the red marker at the 10 o'clock position, you'll see it's now moved to 9 o'clock, which is the previous month. If I rotate it anti-clockwise and cycle through the 30 days, the red marker will move to the 10 o'clock position, which is October, and if I keep cycling through, it will now move to November, which is 11 o'clock. As you can see, the red marker is now at the 11 o'clock position. So this is effectively an annual calendar movement, the Calibre 9001, because we have the months, which are the red marker indexed at the hour marks. We also have a 24-hour GMT complication with the subdial with the 24 hours, and we also have a date complication as usual. So pushing it back in restarts the movement, as you can see, and I'll test the screw down crown action. Absolutely silky smooth. As I've discussed in my previous reviews, I regard Rolex twin lock crowns and trip lock crowns to be the best in the world. They really have the smoothest crown action I have ever experienced on a watch. So the twin lock crown is coin edge finished, solid 18 karat gold, and as you can see it has 2 dots underneath the coronet, which is embossed. The 2 dots denote that it's a twin lock crown, and that provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters of water resistance. So one can rotate the ring command system, the fluted bezel, from position 3 to position 2 to position 1 and back to 0. The 0 position is neutral, and that doesn't activate any of the complications. So it disengages the ring command system from the complications of the Calibre 9001. So one leaves it in the position 0, the neutral position, after setting all the complications. So, with regards to the case back, it's solid 904L oyster steel, brushed satin finish longitudinally, mirror polish to the circumference and coin edge finish to the exterior, as you can see. Low profile, finished to perfection. The solid end links are also roll saw, 18 karat gold centre sections, oyster steel outer sections, finished to perfection. Brushed satin finish to the underside of the case. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks, as one would expect, absolutely beautiful to look at. The mirror polishing to the flanks complements the mirror polishing to the tops of the lugs, and it gives the watch a dress watch aesthetic. The 18 karat gold fluted bezel is just an absolute delight to look at. Flawless mirror polishing to the fluted bezel. Now originally the fluted bezel did serve a purpose with the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. The Rolex Datejust, the fluted bezel screwed down, and that's actually screwed down the crystal to the case of the Datejust. So the fluted bezel actually served the purpose, but then after, the design of the Rolex Datejust Oyster case changed, so it didn't rely upon a screw down fluted bezel, but Rolex retained the fluted bezel as a design characteristic of the Datejust, and now they have used it in this Rolex Sky Dweller, but it does actually serve a purpose again because it operates the ring command system. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, and as you can see it is a tight fit to get across my glove, but I can just fit it on my 8-inch wrist. Very comfortable piece to wear. I like the Oyster clasp. It's very low profile and very aesthetically pleasing with a mirror polished 18 karat gold and brushed satin finish oyster steel. Absolutely gorgeous luster to the roll saw bracelet. Now, it is a tall piece and it is a large piece. It does wear with wrist presence and it also wears with heft. 42mm case means it does have wrist presence. It's also a very heavy piece at 191 grams. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, it has a relatively long lug-to-lug measurement of 50.4. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I regard 48mm to be the sweet spot. regardless of whether you're a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. 50.4 is a rather long lug to lug measurement, so this Sky Dweller is really best suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. If you're a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you may find the 42mm head of the piece by 50.4mm lug to lug measurement to be too top heavy and too much wrist presence for comfort. If you have a larger wrist like myself, the 191 grams is very well balanced because it has a 22mm lug width to the roll saw oyster bracelet, and the 22mm lug width perfectly balances the 42mm head of the piece. The other thing to note is it's a relatively tall piece. It's significantly taller than a Rolex Datejust, for example, because it's 13.9mm. So it's a wide piece at 42mm, and it's also a tall piece. If you wear business shirts, and as a daily wear piece, this is something to consider. It's not easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff of a business shirt. Really, 13mm is the maximum for comfort as per the Rolex Submariner Date, for example. 13.9 is significantly taller, nearly a millimetre taller than the Submariner Date, and therefore you'll find it more difficult to slip the watch underneath a shirt cuff, so that's something to bear in mind. But having said that, it is deceptive because it's a surprisingly comfortable piece to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So although it's heavy and it does have wrist presence, it is very comfortable to wear and it is absolutely beautiful to look at. So the feel-good factor is outstanding, and also the comfort level is outstanding. So just bear with me and I'll get it across my glove. It's a tight fit. Now, with regards to the dial, it's one of my favourite aspects because it is a very aesthetically pleasing dial design with the 24-hour sub-dial and also the red marker next to the indices as I've discussed. 18 karat gold applied coronet at 12 o'clock, and we also have 18 karat gold applied indices which are perfectly symmetrical. So absolutely beautiful to look at, and I love the fact the dial has a glossy finish to it. It really does complement the yellow gold used throughout the piece. Clearly legible, easy to read, and easy to read the various complications such as the 24-hour sub-dial, the month complication, and also the date complication at 3 o'clock. The yellow gold baton hands are beautiful and they contrast very well with the black dial. I like the fact that they have skeletonized the hands, and that allows for the 24-hour GMT sub-dial to be easily read because one can read the Arabic numerals through the skeletonized hour and minute hand. So it's a very well thought out design, clearly legible, and just an absolute pleasure to look at. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So this uses Rolex Chromolite, as one would expect, and I've got very high expectations of Chromolite because it's the very best of Swiss Superluminova. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. Very similar performance to the Rolex Datejust 41, which I previously reviewed. Large Lume plots on the applied yellow gold indices. The baton hands, although they're partially skeletonized, they do offer large Lume plots of chromolite, so one can clearly differentiate between the hour hand and the minute hand. Now, there is an index missing at 3 o'clock for the date complication, and there's also an index missing at the 12 o'clock position for the yellow gold applied coronet. But having said that, the orientation is excellent, the symmetry, the legibility is excellent, the chrome light is glowing very brightly, and it's continuing to glow for a good length of time. So excellent performance, no criticisms whatsoever. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. It's the caliber 9001, and that is one of my favourite aspects of the piece. It's a technically excellent movement. So the caliber 9001 has 40 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications. 72-hour power reserve, which is very impressive. It's a chronometer movement, so it has a stated accuracy of -2 to +2 seconds per day. It's certified by Rolex as a superlative chronometer, and it's also certified by COSC after casing as a chronometer to -2 to +2 seconds per day. This one is running at 0 seconds per day, so perfect accuracy, and it's a credit to Rolex's movement making capability to produce a superlative chronometer, the caliber 9001. With the complications, it's one of the most complicated Rolex movements ever made, and to have 0 second per day accuracy and a 72-hour power reserve, so it's one of the greatest Rolex movements ever made. It's also highly anti-magnetic and highly shock resistant. It has paramagnetic parachrome blue hairspring, which makes it highly anti-magnetic, and it also uses Paraflex shock absorbers. So the Caliber 9001 really does represent the very best of Rolex movements, and it is a technically amazing achievement for Rolex to have produced such an incredibly complicated movement with the ring command system operating the various complications in the movement, such as the month, the 24-hour subdial, and the date complication, as I've demonstrated. No criticisms whatsoever to the Caliber 9001. It has a 10-year service interval, which is very impressive, and it is a very reliable, well-proven caliber. So, lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. There are no cost-cutting measures with this piece whatsoever. So yes, it's an expensive piece at €19,250, but it really does represent the very best of what Rolex can produce. The sapphire crystal benefits from AR coating, and that is a notable improvement over earlier Rolex pieces which only had AR coating on the underside of the Cyclops magnifier. The current Submariner and Submariner Date benefit from AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal, as does the Datejust and the Oyster Perpetual 41. This Rolex Skydweller also benefits from AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. So although the yellow gold applied indices and yellow gold coronet and baton hands are highly reflective, the AR coating is very good, so no cost cutting measures whatsoever. The other thing I really like is the Oyster clasp. As you can see, it's in roll saw. The interior is finished to perfection, as one would expect. Now, it doesn't have a glide lock mechanism, but it does have an easy link extension. As you can see, I've deployed it, and that gives 5mm of extension to the Oyster clasp. So it's the perfect watch. Now, the only thing to bear in mind is it is a large piece, as I've discussed, 42mm, and it is a tall piece at 13.9. It's also a heavy piece at 191 grams. So the only proviso is that one has to be a collector with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches for comfort to enjoy wearing this piece. It doesn't feel like a top heavy piece. It's very well balanced due to the roll saw 22mm Oyster bracelet. So overall, I'm going to declare it excellent quality and excellent value. This is one of the greatest Rolex watches ever made, and I think the Skydweller is going to become highly collectible in the future. And when it's discontinued, it's going to be a very strong investment piece. Prices are going to increase exponentially with time. So it's a Rolex piece with no negatives whatsoever. They have created the perfectly executed piece, and with the perfectly executed movement, the Caliber 9001 is one of the most complicated Rolex calibers, but one of the very best. So I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Rolex Skydweller, reference 326933. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.